the Islamic banking system in Malaysia was an existing phenomenon compared to the system in other Muslim countries, and according to some scholars, Malaysia was one of the most advanced models of Islamic banking in this country. The main factor, according to Nur Muhammad Yaakob, is government support and encouragement, particularly from the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, including the dedication and commitment of regulatory authorities such as the Governor and official of Bank Negara Malaysia, or called as the Central Bank of Malaysia. Tan Sri Jaafar variable and sophisticated system coexisted with the conventional system, resulting in concerted effort to implement Islamic banking in Malaysia. In contrast, the most other countries where Islamic banking was undertaken by the private parties, the sector in Malaysia was driven entirely by the government and implemented by the institution. Other factors included the variable economic environment and the financial engineering's creativity in developing new products. You know that in 1983, the establishment of Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad paved the way the implementation of an Islamic financial system on the larger scale. In this important note that the Malaysian Islamic banking system represents as a framework for the establishment of Islamic bank in the Southeast Asian countries such as Indonesia and Brunei. I move to the background of the establishment of the Islamic bank. The traditional Malay's Muslim society is needed very careful about engaging in riba transaction as a result of the Islamic injunction against riba. The opposition to the practice of riba has been argued to be the one of the major reasons for the Malays' low participation in banking and financial activities, particularly in the rural areas. To avoid interest based on the transaction, in order to obtain cash or liquidity, they use a local customary transaction known as a jual janji or conditional sale. You know that jual janji is recognized by the court as a Malay customary transaction based on the religious consideration, and it's given judicial notice. This traditional practice is very similar to the Bait bi al-Wafa recognized by the Hanafi mazhab.
We move to the next point, which is the global development of modern Islamic banking and financial institutions. The Islamic revival that had occurred in the Middle East had an impact on Malaysian Muslims that had long desired to apply Sharia principles to finance and banking. Various private parties initiated the move to establish an Islamic bank in Malaysia as in any other Muslim country. Thus, the first official approach was proposed even during the Congress Ekonomi Bumiputra, the Bumiputra Economic Congress in 1980, when a resolution was passed calling on the government to allow the Pilgrims Management Fund Board or Lembaga on Tabung Haji to define an Islamic bank in Malaysia in order to encourage but rather make investments of Malay and Muslim within the country. The proposition was raised again at the National Seminar on Konsep Pembangunan dalam Islam, or the Concept of Development in Islam, in March 1981, in which a settlement was managed to pass going to request that the government take immediate action to legislate an act that would allow the establishment of financial firms based on Islamic principles. Okay, next we move to the development in Islamic financial system. There are three phases and has a plenty of development. I will share a few from the phase to make it more clear to you guys. The first phase of development the establishment and the development of Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad, or BIMB. First is legislation of the Islamic Banking Act 1983. In order for Islamic Bank to be formed as well as run in Malaysia, an appropriate legal framework based on Sharia principles must be provided. The previous Bank Act of 1983, now superseded by the Banking and Financial Institution Act BAFIA 1989, did not adhere to Islamic banking principles because it required all banks to operate on the basis of interest while also outlawing all forms of trade in banking activities. As a result, a new law was required to allow the establishment of Sharia-compliant Islamic bank. The second point is the legislation of the Government Investment Act 1983. Whenever the steering committee proposed Islamic banking, this also considered the need to develop an Islamic financial asset for something like the secondary market. The Islamic bank was required to make short-term investment as well as manage funds. Previous avenues for short-term investments included the purchase. The Islamic bank was unable to invest in them. Thus, the steering committee proposed amending the Government Investment Act to permit the government to issue government investment certificates based on Islamic principles.
I jump to the establishment of the Syarikat Takaful Malaysia Berhad (STMB). The steering committee consequently believed that it was Islamic bank responsibility to protect both of its own assets and securities, as well as those of its clients against damage and destruction. In view of this, the committee recommended that the Islamic Insurance Company should establish in Malaysia as soon as possible. To this effect, the Malaysian National Fatwa Council issued an edict in 1972 that insurance, especially life insurance, was a corrupt practice as it contained elements of uncertainty, such as qarar, maisir, and riba, and it was consequently unlawful. Following to the acceptance of the Working Committee report that the government, the Parliament enacted by the Takaful Act in 1984. In November 1984, the first Islamic insurance operator Syarikat Takaful Malaysia Sdn Berhad (STMB) was incorporated, which paid up of capital RM 10 million, being a subsidiary of BIMB, which the establishment STMB, other subsidiaries like Syarikat Wakalah Sdn Berhad provided nominee and investment fund service for the bank, and Ijarah Sdn Berhad provided leasing finance were also set up. I move to the second phase of development, creating an Islamic banking system. The government has decided that there should only one Islamic bank operating on experimental basis for first 10 years starting 1983, and that bank is Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad (BIMB). There were already 21 Islamic banking products and instruments covering a very wide area of banking activities. The second phase of the development of Islamic banking started in early 1990 when BNM outlined the long-term objective to develop comprehensive and vibrant Islamic banking system operating side by side with the conventional banking system. This was aligned with envisioned dual in the following word: I have a dream, and my dream is that I will be able to see in my lifetime a fully fledged Islamic banking system. It must constitute three elements are followed: 1. A wide range of products and instruments must be available to meet the different needs of the investor and borrowers. 2. The large number of institutions and different types of players participate in the banking system. 3. An Islamic interbank money market link institution and the instrument.
Introduction of Scheme Perbankan Tanpa Faedah (SPTF) or Interest Free Banking Scheme (IFBS) and Islamic Banking Scheme (IBS) acknowledged that the option permitting the conventional production financial system to provide Islamic banking services was deemed to be a better way of spreading Islamic banking across the country to as many players as possible in the shortest amount of time. In order to achieve this objective, in March 1993, Bank Negara Malaysia introduced the Interest-Free Banking Scheme (IFBS) or Scheme Perbankan Tanpa Faedah (SPTF). If certain conditions were met, conventional banks were allowed to not only initiate but also provide Islamic banking infrastructure and amenities at their countries using their existing facilities, including staff and branches under this scheme. Next, introduction of an Islamic interbank money market. After careful consideration, Bank Negara Malaysia agreed to implement an Islamic money market based on the concept of mudarabah or profit sharing. The creation of an Islamic money market was critical in order to provide a ready source of Sharia compliance, relatively short-term alternative investments. Islamic bank may borrow from the Islamic money market in the event of a temporary funding shortage. Similarly, once funds are available, Islamic banks may channel them into the Islamic money market as a mode of finance in other Islamic banking institutions.
For the establishment of an Islamic capital market. The establishment of Islamic capital market was another significant step in development of Malaysia's Islamic banking system. The Islamic capital market is the part of the country's economic capital market. It contributes to the country's growth, is as significant as that the other capital market components. It serves as a secondary market for the capital seekers and suppliers, so it complements the Islamic banking system in developing and strengthening Malaysia's Islamic capital sector. As an outcome of the development of an Islamic capital market is inextricably linked to the growth of the Malaysian capital market. I move to the establishment of the Sharia Advisory Council (SAC) of BNM. You know that as a part of the effort to streamline and harmonize the Sharia interpretation among bank and takaful companies, BNM established in Sharia Advisory Council on Islamic Banking and Takaful on May 1997. It took over the role of Bank Sharia Advisory Council as a consultant to the IBS Bank pertaining to the Sharia issue. Prior to the establishment of SAC, BNM has to note that there were some differences in opinion among the Sharia consultants on the similar issue which might obstruct the creation of a sound and healthy Islamic banking system. The SAC is the highest authority in deciding the Sharia issue pertaining to the Islamic.
The third phase of developing an efficient, comprehensive and competitive Islamic banking system. First, international developments of Islamic banking system. The government has designated Labuan as an international offshore financial center in order to promote Malaysia as an international Islamic financial center (IOFC). In this regard, the Bank Negara Malaysia has actively participated in international strategies to promote the advancement of Islamic banking and finance, such as the establishment of International Islamic Financial Market (IIFM) and the Islamic Financial Services Board (IFSB). Next, Labuan as an Islamic International Offshore Financial Center (IOFC). The Labuan International Offshore Financial Center (IOFC) was established on 1st October 1990 with the goals of supplementing domestic financial activities in Kuala Lumpur, strengthening Malaysia's financial services sector's contribution to the gross national product, and promoting Labuan's economic development. Then, launching of the first sovereign global Islamic sukuk, Malaysia has chosen to proceed its pioneering efforts in empowering innovative frameworks, such as the exchangeable sukuk musyarakah by Khazanah Nasional Berhad, the Malaysian government's investment holding arm, since trying to introduce the world's first global sovereign sukuk in 2002. Islamic banks managed to avoid investing and collaborating with institutions in non-halal industry. As a result, Islamic banks are chastised for their conservatism and adherence to Sharia law. So, at the moment when traditional banking was undergoing precedented change, Islamic banks managed to remain conservative and ethical. This characteristic provided and protected them from the financial crisis. To summarize, because the economic crisis has created a rare opportunity